we are going to move right into item D10, which is a Budget 101 presentation. As we gear up for our August 5th Board of Supervisors budget hearing, we thought it would be very helpful to provide some more general explanation as to really what's in our budget, how much latitude do we have as their discretion do we have with our budget, and just sort of how the process works. And so we've got great presentation by both David Twa and Lisa Driscoll, who is our County Finance Director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're very pleased to do this afternoon. It's going to be a relatively short presentation. There is tons of information about our budgets and our budget process on our website. And as we get into the discussion this afternoon, we will point those out in terms of where anyone who is interested in our budget process would be able to find those. We do have some slides, but need to have them put up. So.
Okay.
While we're waiting for that, basically what we want to talk about a little bit, of course, is what goes into our budget in terms of the county profiles, what our budget mandates are, as well as the budget process. We can also going to point out as a part of this where you can find the county financial information. And then finally, what to expect when we get to the budget hearings. So, looks like it's coming up now as we see this.
Okay.
If they Oh, there we go. All right, we're in business. So, again, essentially, these are the items that we want to cover in a very short period of time, again, because most of this information is really on our websites and available through our budget books. Everybody is familiar, I think, with our county profile in terms of we are one of the original 27 counties in California, and we obviously have a 5-member board. We have a number of elected officials, and then myself, as your county administrator, is basically responsible for running the day-to-day business of the county. Probably half of what we do, and from my time, and more than that in terms of county staff, including Lisa Driscoll, is spent dealing with budget and finance issues. So that is kind of the core of what we have to be involved in. One of the things that we point out in our budget books, of course, is employment by industry throughout the county. And the purpose of this is to show that we are very diverse in terms of our industry. That is very helpful in terms of maintaining our economic status, because we're not predominantly dependent upon one particular area. So you can see this is a listing in terms of our principal employers. And once again, you notice a couple of things. During the last Great Recession in 2009, we show you where the ranking was of the top 10 employers. And essentially, as you can see, some of them have retained that ranking, some of them have actually dropped out of that top 10. But again, the principal thing to take away from this is the fact that we are very diverse in terms of our employment base and in terms of our employers. And once again, that helps stabilize us as we go through ups and downs of the budget process. We have budget mandates. Of course, we are, as we always like to say, an arm of the state and the federal government. So we provide a wide array of services, many of which are mandated either from the federal government or from the state government. We also like to say, of course, that we provide coverage from A to Z, animal services all the way down to zoning and everything in between. And essentially, we are one of the few counties in the state that continues to operate a hospital. That is very critical to our residents. Most California county hospitals have closed over the years due to lack of funding and opportunities. As I indicated, we have many mandated functions, and we'll talk a little bit more about those as we go through. Even though we have a number of, quote, discretionary functions, those are ones that tend to be very close to our hearts in terms of homeless programs, Meals on Wheels, senior nutrition, child abuse, all the way down to veteran services. So oftentimes when we get into budget hearings and we hear from people, well, you just need to cut some of the services. Unfortunately, many of the services that would be subject to cutting because they are discretionary are ones that are very critical to our lifestyle and to our residents. The annual budget book that is available, of course, has two very thorough listings of county programs by the discretionary level. One is sorted by department and the other by service and level. And Lisa will be talking about that in a little bit. So now we're going to get into the budget process. One of the things that we want to point out is here is our normal budget process. This might be a little hard to see, but it is on our website. Essentially, it is a 12-month process. We start with working on the budgets early in the year. At the time we develop the budgets, many times we're not aware of what the financing is going to look like, either from the state or federal government. No more so than this year, in which we are struggling because of the cuts that we have seen to many of our programs, and the hopeful expectation that we will see some additional revenues coming from either the state or the federal government to cover a number of those holes. As I said, that's our normal budget process, but we also have this year, unfortunately, a COVID budget process. We went through the process in terms of preparing our budgets as we normally do. On April 10th, we published the recommended budget. We had, on April 28th, the board adopted the budget schedules which are necessary in order to be in place by the January 1 spending authority. Now we're into what I would say is an unusual process for us, in which we're basically coming back to consider the budgets. On August 4th, we will have the budget hearings, and hopefully we will not have layoffs, but if we do, they will be effective as of September 1. By September 15th, we'll ask the board to adopt the final budget as finally determined. That is because by law we have to have a budget in place by October 2nd. However, given what's going on at the federal and state levels, we know that there's a great deal of uncertainty that will continue. So we anticipate that through October, December, probably into January, we will be reviewing and revising the budgets as necessary and returning to you on a fairly frequent basis. With that, I would like to turn it over to Lisa, who will lead you through the financial information.
Thank you. As David said, there are many sources of financial information on the county's website, and two of them provide a wealth of information, and those are the county administrators and the auditor's financial pages. The county administrators page has summary data and documents covering 8 broad topics: budget information, debt information, financial policies, information on our other post-employment benefits, information on our PARS, public agencies, post-retirement health care trust agreement, information on pensions, sales tax, and board-administered special revenues. That budget information pages include the county's budget documents. The auditor's office also has web pages, and it's organized into 6 areas that cover the 6 divisions of his office. There's administration support, property tax, payroll, general accounting, internal audit, and special accounting. And the internal audit information is home to the county's comprehensive annual financial report. The budget documents and the CAFR work together to provide financial information on what has already happened and operational spending plans for the future, kind of like the windshield and the rearview mirror of a car. As David also mentioned, COVID has impacted the way we handle everything, including our annual budget process. So this year, our plan is to start with the fiscal year 2021 recommended budget, and note that this budget does not include any financial or program impacts of COVID-19. So what it does include is a budget message and county profile, as David mentioned, an overview of the county, including our financial policies, historical perspective, org charts, standing committees, advisory bodies, changes in projected fund balance, capital improvement, current debt position, list of programmatic changes from the previous budget, the mandatory and discretionary list that David talked about, fund definitions, budgetary fund structure, table of funds, glossaries and acronyms, and it's all in PDF searchable documents so that we tried to make this as user-friendly as possible. These next two slides are snippets of some of the pages of information that is available in this budget document. I'm just going to click through those. To develop the recommended budget, we began with the position allocations as of January. As David mentioned, we projected our salaries and benefits based on the 2021 data. We thoroughly reviewed all of our revenues, and for the most part, we increased revenues at that point. We updated our allocations for known costs such as occupancy, telephone, data processing, those types of expenses, and we increased or decreased positions based on funding. At that point, we finalized our recommended schedules, and then the long-term impact of COVID-19 began to emerge. So as I said, that COVID information isn't included in the budget, but starting on slide 21, the next few slides show you some of the information that is included. So slide 21 shows our recommended sources, and we have just under $4 billion in recommended sources for the 2021 budget, and this does not include our special districts. Sorry, I'm bouncing around. 22 is appropriations by function. We generally show this slide. It breaks out our appropriations by Health and Human Services, General Government, and Law and Justice. And you can see on the right-hand column that Health and Human Services receives 71.8% of the allocation, General Government 14.5%, and Law and Justice 13.6%. And those were our county breakout sections. There's also appropriations by state function code, and these are our standardized functions that all of our expenditures are coded to. So you can compare this information to other entities more clearly. You can see that for all funds, we have $3.98 billion worth of appropriations, and we have the breakout by each area, and then also our general fund allocation of $1.78 billion. Slide 24 shows our general purpose revenue, and we were projecting $526.9 million in general purpose revenue for 2021, and of that amount, just over $428 million is from property tax. General fund revenue in the four major sources that it comes in is about 23% in state assistance, 17% in federal funds, 31% in other local revenue, fines and fees and those types of things, and then 29% in general purpose revenue. Those revenues are broken out into areas, services and supplies, which is 34%, other charges, 17%, of course, the largest is salaries and benefits, 55%, or $982.7 million in salaries and benefits. We also show the breakout by functional area again on this slide. We talk a lot about net county cost. On slide 27, net county cost and net fund cost are two different things. Net county cost is each agency's share of general purpose revenue. So it's a spread of the $526 million of general purpose revenue by agency. So if you add all of those up and you include the general purpose revenue department, that should balance to zero, and that would indicate a balanced budget, which is where we went into this process in the recommended document. A net fund cost it shows a restricted use of fund balance from a fund other than the general fund. Slide 28 is a slide that we show each year. It's a great visual because it shows that of our $526.9 million worth of general purpose revenue, 9 departments basically receive 85% of that revenue. So as David mentioned earlier, it makes reductions difficult. Slide 29 and 30 are slides that are also included in the budget book. This shows our allocated positions by all fund and general fund. And in the right-hand column shows the additions or reductions to positions that we had planned for in this recommended budget document. This one's general fund. And then this last slide that I'll go over is one we started including a few years ago. And it's a slide that shows the total homeless, mental health, and housing money from all sources. The recommended budget as printed included $391.8 million in appropriations for homeless, mental health, and housing. And that allocation was funded $361 million from federal and state sources and $30.7 million from general purpose monies. An additional $30 million has been received or is expected to be received for these programs and wraparound services for the homeless directly related to COVID-19. We're continuing to work to rebalance the recommended budget return to the board during budget hearings on August 4th, and David's next.
Thank you, Lisa. I think, again, this homeless and mental health housing slide is a critical one for the board to take a look at. Essentially, we spend a large portion of our dollars relating to these issues. We've heard, obviously, a lot of requests from the public to actually increase the mental health funding, and we are attempting to do that throughout this process. One of the advantages we have with the CARES Act funding, which is the federal dollars that have come to the county to respond to the COVID-19 issues, is that we've been able to allocate a significant portion of that already to the homeless as well as to the housing for the homeless, and we expect to allocate a significantly greater portion of those CARE Act dollars going forward. One of the things, as the board is aware of, that we're potentially looking at is purchasing a motel so that we can continue to provide critical services to the homeless and provide housing for them. And we'll be working with the departments as well as with the state government, which has been very helpful in terms of moving forward as it relates to that. So where are we right now? Basically, obviously, we're carefully reviewing the state budget impacts by programs and reviewing the potential impacts on all of our revenues. We're working closely with the departments to rebalance the programs. This has been an exercise that's been going on because the numbers keep changing. Initially, we weren't certain at all of getting any realignment dollars from the state and federal government, which is a significant portion of the revenues that we use to support many of the health and human services programs. Now, of course, the state did step up and indicated that we will receive 75% of the normal amount that we would have received for realignment programs, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But and there's also the promise that if the federal government comes forward with more revenues, that the state would then rebalance and provide the remaining 25% of the realignment funds that support many of our programs. Because there is no guarantee of that, one of the things we've asked the departments is to take a look in terms of what impacts would result if, in fact, we don't receive that money. That is why one of these things that we've talked about is that we will need to come back to the board repeatedly in the fall months as we look to adjust the budgets depending upon what might happen at either the federal or the state level. Here's what we do know in terms of the COVID budget impacts right now. Those of you who were around during the Great Recession of 2009 through 2012 will recall that basically the big hits we took were in the property tax area, and that dragged down other segments of the economy, but it was primarily the real estate market collapsing that created many of the difficulties that we had. Now, under the pandemic, we're looking at across the board revenue impacts, some of which we did not see during the Great Recession. So we have some state budget cuts that we're already aware of, and of course this morning the board talked about one of those, which was the reduction in funding to our child support department. We also, as I indicated, are seeing realignment reductions. And there are two realignment pots, if you will, that kind of get confused. One of which is there's a 1991 realignment that dealt with a number of health and human services programs, and then the 2011 realignment, which also had some impacts on health and human services programs, but most of it was on what we referred to as the AB 109. This was where the state transferred a number of prisoners who had historically served their sentences at the state level and basically said those were now going to be the responsibility of the county. And they did provide a pot of money, but unfortunately the pot of money that they provided was not significant enough to cover all of our costs that were associated with taking over those responsibilities. Now, as we get into the pandemic response, we're seeing kind of the same thing. We're seeing reductions in the AB 109. The board members will remember that AB 109 funding is a guaranteed constitutional pot of money, but the amount in the pot is not guaranteed. It is made up of sales tax and motor vehicle license fees, which are two of the critical areas that tend to suffer the most when we go into any type of recession, and certainly in the pandemic, in which sales tax revenues have dropped precipitously. So we have to deal with that. We also have, on top of all that, we also get a general sales tax allocation. The good news is that's relatively small compared to what many of the cities have, and which of course has created greater stresses for the cities. In our case, we're projecting probably about a $2 million deficit in terms of the general property tax returns. Big hit, of course, has been the hospital and clinic area loss of revenues. With the pandemic, of course, we closed down, as a practical matter, the clinics, as well as the hospital to services other than those directly related to the pandemic. We will be able to reimburse part of those costs as a result of receiving the CARES Act dollars, but nevertheless, we saw revenue losses in the tune of $15 million a month to the hospital and the clinics due to the fact that we were not generating any revenue out of those. We've already talked about the library losses, and unfortunately had the second round of layoffs as it related to the libraries due to, again, the cities having to reduce their funding. And of course, we've seen a loss of fees and other revenues. One of the areas that is an unknown, of course, is whether we'll see increased pension costs, in the sense that the stock market has been all over the board, and it's been up and down. But if you look at the numbers, as one wag once said, the stock market takes the stairs up and the elevator down. And so there's still a lot of angst out there about the fact that the stock market might still go down further, as a result of which will, over the long term, will have some impacts on our pension costs. Fortunately, through CAFR, we do a multi-year averaging process, so that means any one year is not as bad as long as you have some good years. So hopefully some of that will be recovered. And then, of course, the COVID-19 costs. We have already expended or incurred over $100 million of the $200 million that we are receiving from the CARES Act directly related to the COVID-19 costs. Those costs will continue to go on. Obviously, we currently look like we're entering into a surge, which will further stretch the departments and will further add costs as far as it relates to the COVID-19. The other problem with that, as many of you are quite aware, is the CARES Act money is one-time only money. So once again, we have to expend that, or at least have it allocated by the end of December and spent within 90 days after that time period. And essentially, that is one-time only money. So some of the things that we're backfilling the holes as it relates to revenue areas in particular, essentially that only is one-time only money, which means if the pandemic continues and if the recession is long and deep, we will have problems because we will have run out of that money and have to rely on our own resources. So what we are planning on as far as the budget discussions in August are concerned is the fact that we need to plan not just for the next 6 months in terms of the COVID-19, but probably for a recovery that's going to take at least 18 months to 24 months. So in reality, although we'll be talking about the budget for the fiscal year 21-22 later, but for now we'll be talking about the July 1, 2020 through June 30th of 2021. In reality, we have to be planning for how we're going to get through the next 2 years in order to avoid having to make deep and very painful cuts to the services that we provide to everybody. One thing that we should not overlook is the fact that we had already cost projected some large items for the year 2020-21 that we are still going to incur irrespective of the changes we're making in the budget now. Essentially, we have some mandated mental health services in the correction facilities that we are estimating for 2020 to 2021 are going to cost an additional $13.5 million. This is projected out for the next 2 to 3 years. When we get out to 2024, we anticipate that the mandated mental health services in the correction facilities will be any place from $40 to $50 million operational costs per year. So this is a sizable problem that we're going to have to address over the next couple of years. Homeless services will continue to, as we indicated, we've already looked at probably $100 million in that slide that we showed earlier that we've spent, and we anticipate spending more. As I mentioned, the AB 109 funds, which we basically flow through the Community Corrections Partnership and then go to the Public Protection Committee for consideration. We have, over the last few years, promised more programs than we have been receiving revenue. The revenue continues to either be flat or now, of course, as we see with the pandemic going down. And so we are spending down the reserves in that particular pot of money. At the current rate, it will be exhausted by the year 2023, which will require substantial reduction in the programming that we do through the Community Corrections Partnership. The hospital, of course, continues to get significant support from the general fund. We are projecting that an increase of $17 million for the fiscal year 2021, which will mean that at that point, the general fund will be supporting the hospital to the tune of about $77 million. There are some one-time only items that we absolutely have to do irrespective of this, and which we have set aside in particular pots money for, one of which was the Department of IT in terms of security enhancements. We are seeing continued attacks on our system. That's about a $3.5 million project that we need to address. We need to replace the finance and tax systems. We've talked about this for years, but we finally moved forward with it. Those are expensive projects, but again, we have the money set aside to do those, but they're about $18 million each. The good news is we have all of our unions under contract. For the next open contract will be in the fall of 2021 when the Nurses Association contract will come open. We settled a few months ago, as the board is well aware, our contract with our own in-home support services workers. Essentially, that agreement's going to cost us about $5.1 million per year. A critical item that's not included in this list because it really isn't a 2021 item is the fact that in 2022, the state is proposing to reverse the funding formula as it relates to how the in-home support services are provided. Right now, essentially, of the non-federal share, we pay about 35% of it. The state pays 65% of it. In 2022, the state is proposing to reverse those dollar figures so that our responsibility would be 65% as opposed to the 35%. So as you can see, that basically more than doubles what our costs would be. We anticipate working with the legislature in the hopes of addressing that issue, but it is one that's on the future line for us if we don't take care of it. So these are all big items that we need to look at. So for August 4th, we will be doing budget hearings. Keep in mind that in reality, we have budgets now for 2020-21. So the hearings that we're going to have on August 4th is essentially to have the departments address those areas in which they are under stress or are going to see some cuts, and then talk about how we are going to address those. Our goal, as we have always said, is basically to avoid any layoffs and to get us through this with as much ability as we can. We believe that we've put together a good program that we'll be discussing at length on August 4th in terms of how we're going to get there. We do have, as I say, a glide path that we think will get us to through the next 18 to 24 months. As I've said to many of you, if we don't have a glide path, then our approach would have to be to foam the runway. So we don't want to do that. So we're going to do our best to come up with a plan that will be acceptable to the board and that will get us through this process. So with that is really the items that we wanted to cover for the purpose of just the Budget 101, really a basic presentation. We will get into a lot more detail when we get to the August 4th hearings. In the meantime, of course, we are working very diligently to address those issues. As the numbers continue to change, we continue to go back to the departments to try and address it. So it is like a moving target, but we believe that we will have a good plan for the board when we get there.